We've had a hiccup. Our master of the fund, Nick Bromley, is away this evening. He can't be with us. And I'm the understudy. I'm one of the directors of the fund, and I've been asked to say a few words concerning the tradition and the history of the cake. So I'm going to do the honours. So welcome and thanks for coming up, guys. The history of the event in the fund is packed with incidents, and it's fascinating for those of us that work in the theatre. This year we add to the historical archive, firstly by receiving the President Shrek Company for the second year running. Thank you very much, guys. And also because this is the first Sunday in 200 years that the cutting of the cake has fallen on a Sunday. So it's a great celebration for the fund itself, and it's also time for us to look back. I've been speaking with Jenny Walton, one of the other directors of the fund, and I was asking her about previous occasions. 200 years ago, this very night, at Drury Lane, it was 12th night that was played at packed houses. There were splendid reviews for Orsino and Malvolio, played by well-known actors at the time, Mr. Holland and Mr. Downton. So Downton's still around there. 100 years ago, in 1913, it was altogether a more light entertainment that was taking place. A Sleeping Beauty was the pantomime that was done at the theatre, using all that fantastic machinery that's underneath the stage, I expect, which the Victorians particularly loved. But we need to go back even further, believe it or not, to find out something about the very first cutting of the cake, which was in 1795 under the actor-manager Mr. Kemble. And that was a rather sad occasion, that first cutting, because the company had gathered together in the green room backstage in 1795 to remember the recently departed fellow actor, Robert Baddeley. He had died a few months later in the company. It was a terrible winter that year. There was freezing fog everywhere. The Thames itself had frozen over. It had frozen over so deeply, all the activity was on top of the Thames. There were auction roastings, there was gambling and whorehouses. All the activity had taken place in the frozen Thames. And the freezing fog came up and swept around Drury Lane. And it even entered the theatre, so Jenny thinks. And on that night, there he sat, lonely and depressed, mourning the loss of their fellow actor, Robert Baddeley. However, despite the weather conditions, the crowd still flocked up to Drury Lane, coming off the Thames, to come and see Mr. Kemble and Mrs. Siddons in Measure for Measure, which was taking place at the time. On that occasion, it wasn't just Mr. Kemble and Mrs. Siddons was there, the entire company was there, as a local newspaper at the time, the Public Advertisers, informs us that a gloomy atmosphere and the freezing fog were dispersed by cheerfully dispensing cake and ale to all, which suggests that the entire company, 200 years ago, was doing what we're doing tonight, sharing cake and ale. So, who was Baddeley? Well, he was a typical actor. He was a man of many talents. He was a singer. He was a stage manager working under Sheridan, and he was also a baker. He was an excellent cook. Great skills in culinary arts, it was described at the time. And he worked for quite a well-known actor at the time, Samuel Foote. And it was in his employment that he began to appreciate, as he called it, the drama. And then, having left working for Foote, he went off, travelled around the world for 2 or 3 years. He came back and he had his debut at the Haymarket Theatre under David Garrick. And he was there for 2 seasons. And then very quickly, he transferred to Drury Lane, and he remained here, how's this for a contract? He remained here for 37 years. And that's what I call it. And he was, renowned performances had taken place here. He was renowned for Bosham in, obviously, The Dream, Polonius and Hamlet, Petulant in The Way of the World, and he was most famous for Moses in School for Scandal. So famous and so well recognised, he was painted in oils in terms of character, and that picture hung in the Royal Academy. So during that time, it's a big company this one, but during that time, 200 years ago, there would have been 62 performers probably in the company, of actors, dancers and singers. His salary at the time was £9 a week. Wow. Just about But Mrs. Siddons was on £20 a performance. She was breaking it. So here tonight we toast this cake week remembering historically the actor from that period and welcoming the actors from today. Now, the fund would not work if it weren't for the people in the Drury Lane Theatrical Fund who organise and administer the fund, in particular Miranda and Jenny and Nick, I say sadly not here, and Mike, and their work is greatly appreciated. However, it's to the really useful group that we have to show thanks for, the current management of the lane, as they have provided the punch. Be careful, guys. It's a very famous 1795 recipe. It's going around at the moment. So they sponsored the punch. It will be served from a silver bowl that was donated by the My Fair Lady company several years ago. You'll hear it come down, folks. And then we shall go to the cutting of the cake itself. And again, thanks Dean for delaying flight and hanging around to perform our honours for us. I should say, which I haven't already said, in fact, much as I appreciate the management's help in putting this on this evening, we have, of course, got to thank Squires School, who are a well-known catering, and a team of caterers led by Tess and her decorating team, who have designed and iced this cake to perfection. It was absolutely fantastic. Round of applause. And detailed is the work. I didn't even know there was anything such as Georgian bakery, but believe me, there is apparently. So Dean, this particularly applies to you. If you lift off the hat in the middle of the cake, can you do that? Tess will assist. Yeah, you support Tess. Tess can take the hat.
I'm glad it's not me.
Robert Baddeley. And ladies and gentlemen, what is marvellous about Squires sponsoring this event, I should say, you can see by the intricate work that has been performed by Tess and her team, that this is a very expensive item. And yet, they only charge us £3. It was decided in the will of Robert Baddeley, who left £100 and decreed that with this stock, it should be invested and £3 should be raised each year in order to provide some cake and some drink for the current ladies and gentlemen performers of Drury Lane. So ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to raise your glass? If you've got one, if your glass is of charge, may I ask you to toast Robert Baddeley and have Dean lead the Shrek Company in cutting of the cake. Robert Baddeley! Yes?
I'd just like to say, on behalf of myself, obviously, and everybody behind me, and many of the Shrek Company in the room, that I'm a huge fan of tradition, which is why I changed my holiday and I now go away tomorrow morning and all the place to know. But I'm a great believer in these things, and obviously being a performer, this is the one tradition in theatre band that is possibly the most well known. I'm very, very honoured, personally myself, on behalf of everybody to be here. To cut this moment, so thank you for the invitation.